Well, just who is responsible for mailing explosive devices to various political figures across the country? Welcome to Faith Nation. I'm Jenna Browder.
And I'm John Jessup. Investigators from the ATF, FBI, and local levels are looking for any clue to help identify the would-be bomber. Amber
Strong brings us the latest on the high-profile figures being targeted.
Another day, another round of bomb scares across the country. This time the targets are former Vice President Joe Biden and Hollywood actor Robert De Niro.
Today at approximately 6:30 a.m., the NYPD bomb squad removed a device from the offices of Robert De Niro.
A security guard at De Niro's New York business discovered the package. Authorities transported it via a bomb containment unit for investigation. Meanwhile, 2 additional packages intercepted in Delaware. These were addressed to Vice President Biden. The one sent to De Niro was similar to those sent to Democratic leaders and former CIA Director John Brennan earlier in the week. Attorney General Sessions says he's briefing the president and praising the work of the FBI and ATF.
In dealing with explosive devices, it just points out again the courage our officers display.
While condemning the culprit last night, the president also called for change from the media.
The media also has a responsibility to set a civil tone and to stop the endless hostility.
And re-entering that message on Twitter Thursday, saying, "A very big part of the anger we see today in society is caused by the purposely false and inaccurate reporting of the mainstream media." Others here in Washington are calling for a top-down approach.
We need the president and we need all other public officials to be reaffirming that basic idea about what unites us as Americans. Right. And so I haven't heard again what he said this morning, but we need to stop with all this nonsense language about the press as the enemy of the people.
Well, Scott Whitlock is an associate editor of Newsbusters at the Media Research Center. Scott, thank you for being with us.
Thanks for having me on.
Well, Scott, the president today tweeted earlier that part of the big anger that we're seeing is what he calls stems from inaccurate reporting from much of the media. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think what we're seeing here is that this country has always had a civility problem as far as people reacting and violence and things like that when it comes to certain people on the extremes. But what we've seen with the media is they only want to condemn it when it seems to come from the right. We don't know anything about what exactly happened yesterday, what the motive is, so we just need to wait and see. But we've already seen on CNN and the networks that they want to jump to the conclusion that this is some Trump supporter, that the president is somehow to blame, that conservatives are to blame. And what we've seen with the media is they want to jump to conclusions. They want to have broader narratives about this. This is somehow Trump's fault or the right's fault. And I would just say, let's look back to the Steve Scalise shooting. If we remember that, that was a guy named James Hodgkins, who was a leftist, who was a Bernie Sanders supporter. And what we saw at the time, we actually looked at that for the Media Research Center, is when the shooting happened, we saw a lot of coverage, but it quickly trailed off. And we also saw that they didn't want to draw any larger narrative. They didn't want to say that Bernie Sanders is to blame or the left is to blame. And I'm not saying that Bernie Sanders was to blame. We shouldn't blame large groups of people or political ideologies for what one person does. But contrast that with this attempted bombing or whatever was supposed to happen yesterday. We're already seeing that the media is trying to draw this narrative that this is somehow the right's fault and Donald Trump's fault.
Scott, a twofold question. Based on your research there at Newsbusters, how did we get here? And then the second part is, what's the solution?
Well, look, the media has always been very liberal and always biased against conservatives and biased against Republican presidents. It's certainly escalated with this president to a degree that I haven't seen before. And I think part of that is because you have a president and a candidate who really fought back against the liberal media, called them out, called them fake news, and did all sorts of things to make media bias an issue. And you can like the way the president does that, or you can not like it. Sometimes he probably says things he shouldn't. But the fact is that he is making media bias an issue, and I think that has really got a lot of liberals in the media angry to the point where we've just seen it escalate. They want to go after him because they don't like him fighting back against the media.
Sure. And a solution?
Well, I think the solution is hard because I don't think the liberal media is going to change. I don't think journalists are going to change. I think part of the solution is the fact that you have so many people turning away from mainstream media. We see that with newspapers. We see that with the networks, the decline in their viewership. And you see people turning to alternative media, to talk radio, to the internet, to online news, to all sorts of different outlets. And I think that's a good thing because the solution for people out there is to get your media and get your media sources from a wide variety of places. Don't get it from just ABC, NBC, CBS. And if we do that, then we're going to have more choice. And I would just say that part of the reason journalists get so angry is because they don't control the narrative like they used to. It's not Walter Cronkite saying this is the way it is, right? Because people have so many more choices. That's
definitely true. Well, Scott Whitlock, Associate Editor of Newsbusters at Media Research Center, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you very much.
Well, CBN's national security correspondent Eric Rosales has been following the story from the beginning. He joins us now to discuss response from law enforcement. Eric, you know, every time we see a bunch of these white machines going in and they extract this suspected bomb, what exactly is this? Because they take it then and they take that to their FBI testing facility?
Right. It's the FBI labs where they can actually dispose of the unit or actually even look at the unit. They're called total containment vessels, and they almost look like a spear-like. But what it does is when you put the actual explosive in there, should it explode, it actually has the pressure chambers where the pressure chambers would be released, and yet the fragments and everything from the bomb would stay inside. So once they're actually able to get that inside that vehicle, that's the safest part in being able to move it. The New York bomb squad currently has 3 of these, and these are not very cheap vehicles. You're looking at anywhere from $250,000 to $350,000 per vehicle.
Okay, wow. Well, what are they doing with these packages once they actually do get them?
Right. The biggest thing right now is to be able to try and find where the components came from, whether it's the explosives, whether it's commercial grade or military grade explosives, whether it has any type of explosive on it, where the components, the switches, the battery, where did they come from? That's what they're going to be trying to do. They're going to be trying to take these back to Quantico, where the FBI has its lab, and they're going to try and take apart these bombs and see how they work, what makes them tick, how do they go off, what's the timing mechanism, things like that. These are the questions that are going to be able to provide answers and paint a picture of more of who is this male bomber or who are these male bombers. Yeah. What is this group all about? What's their motive behind this?
Still so many questions, as you say. These explosives, we've seen some pictures of them. And Eric, by everything that we've seen and heard, they don't look terribly sophisticated.
No.
What's your take?
Very crude devices. And what I'm hearing from some of my FBI sources is that even some of the devices, although that they were functional, they were able to explode because of the explosive material that was inside. The wires and everything, some of them actually were even set up wrong. So they don't think that this was a very sophisticated type of bomb-making person, but it is something that they're looking into. You know, there's so many different scenarios of who could it be, and right now that's what the FBI is trying to do. Is they're just trying to paint a picture of who this person is so that they can be able to try and narrow down the search for whoever this male bomber is.
Yeah, and hopefully they find him or her sooner than later.
Exactly,
All right.
exactly.
Eric Rosales, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Defense Secretary Jim Mattis is planning to send at least 800 troops to the U.S. border with Mexico. According to an administration official, they'll help Border Patrol defend against illegal immigration. The move follows President Trump's promise that the military would act to stop the group of Honduran migrants heading toward the border, and going as far to say that some in the caravan were from the Middle East. Contributing correspondent Chuck Holton has more from the Mexican city of Tapachula.
All right, so I want to try to clarify some of what you've been hearing in the news media about this caravan moving north into the United States. First of all, the people in this caravan are not being paid to join the caravan. Their payoff comes when they get to the U.S. They are, however, being facilitated and enabled by groups like the UN, other NGOs, and by church groups who are feeding them and providing them support on their journey north. Now, the other questions have been, are there felons, are there bad guys in this group? And I can tell you, it didn't take me long to find 4 or 5 right away who are absolute felons that are coming north to try to get back into the United States. Here's one of them.
Ha visitado, sí.
¿Cuántas veces?
4.
4 veces. Pero ¿cuánto tiempo ha pasado adentro de los Estados Unidos?
A veces 2 meses, a veces
2 meses.
Sí, a veces 1 mes. Así.
No mucho.
Sí, no mucho presos ahí. Ahí en los centros de detención.
Now, the other issue that we're seeing is people are asking about whether or not there are what you would call exotics, that is, people who are not from Central America that are joining this caravan. And let me just show you what I found a few minutes ago. Hey, Somalia! ¿Cómo están? ¿Todo bien? ¿Cuándo van a salir?
No Spanish.
Oh, no speak Spanish.
I speak English.
English. When are you going to the United States?
I don't know. When I have a chance, maybe week, day.
What are you waiting for?
We want to take some rest. You know, we retire from the road.
I'm sorry, what?
We want to take some rest, you know.
Oh, you want to rest a little bit. Where did you start?
I started probably Brazil, you know.
Oh, you went all the way to Brazil and came up from Brazil? Did you walk through the Darien?
There's some road we must to walk, you know, to cross it by walk.
Now, lastly, it bears pointing out that there are some people who are saying, this is too difficult, it's too hard, and I want to go home. And I found 2 people like that yesterday and actually helped them get back to the border of Guatemala. Take a look at what they had to say.
Look, it was really hard. There are lots of people in the group, some good, some bad. While we were all sleeping together, someone took my phone. I decided to go back because of my daughter. Carrying her while we walked, I became so tired, and the sun and everything affected us both a lot. My dream has always been to go to the United States, because it's so beautiful, to work and improve the lives of me and my family, and more than anything, to give my daughter a better future.
Well, Chuck Holton joins us now for more. Chuck, first of all, really great reporting, giving us an inside look at the caravan.
Thank you.
After spending some time with the people traveling in that caravan, what struck you most, or what stands out most to you?
I think what stands out the most is that you're not going to stop these people by traditional means. I mean, they overwhelmed the border forces of Mexico. Mexican authorities sent 500 troops down there to block the border, and they just walked right past them because they have figured out that a woman and a child are far more powerful than an AK-47 when it comes to entering a country illegally. You just put the women up front, they're not going to shoot you, and they know that. And so I actually saw a group of migrants that was approached by Mexican immigration officials asking them to just register for asylum. And they said, no, we're not going to register for asylum. And they just turned around and got really belligerent and ran off. So I expect that they plan to do the exact same thing when they get to the U.S. southern border. And I can tell you 800 troops is not going to do it. We need 100,000 troops. But if they're not in Tijuana, on the Tijuana border with California, they might as well stay home because that is where this migrant convoy is planning to go.
Yeah. Chuck, you were really able to get these people to open up to you. How did you do that? What made them so comfortable to just share all of these details with you?
Well, part of it is that I speak fluent Spanish, and that was nice for them to be able to talk to me. I could sit around and just talk with them and let them know that I'm not against them. I mean, it's hard not to have your heart break looking at these people. They are, I think a lot of us have heard about the misery and hardship that's happening in Venezuela right now, but we're not hearing so much about the very similar misery and hardship that's been happening in Honduras, partially because of Venezuela. And there are a lot of people that are going hungry in Honduras right now. They said, look, there aren't gang members in this group because there might be some bad guys, but there's no gang members because if there were gang members, we'd turn them into the police. We're leaving Honduras because the gang members make us pay $80 a month or more as a protection fee for our families. And if not, they'll come kill your whole family. And it's just, we just don't want to live that way.
All right, Chuck Holton, thank you for your time. Great job out there.
Thanks, Chuck.
Thank you.
We'll break down so-called zero-for-zero tariffs and explain why some are pushing President Trump to pursue them.
Another turbulent week on Wall Street, but today ended with gains. The Dow was up 401 at the close of trading, and the S&P up 49. Today's rises comes after the Dow closed down just over 600 points yesterday.
Well, some economic analysts are pushing President Trump to pursue what are called zero tariffs, hoping to get his attention. They sent a letter using the Wall Street Journal.
They say the move would expand markets overseas while also creating jobs. But would other countries be on board for a zero-for-zero offer? CBN's White House correspondent Ben Kennedy sat down with one of the authors to explain the letter. Ben?
Well, Jenna and John, President Trump said the U.S. lost billions of dollars due to unfair trade just last year. But analysts, including one of his former economic advisors, say this idea would solve the trade turmoil without further tariffs.
I don't know if he's going to do it. I know that article landed on his desk, and I know he's considering it.
Economist Stephen Moore's proposal aims to create a level playing field.
You offer these countries, we'll go to zero tariff if you will.
The zero-for-zero offer would drop all tariffs, barriers, and subsidies between the U.S. and its allies.
What kind of impact will this have on the average American? Will the goods go down, the prices?
Yeah, of course they will, because tariff is a tax, and so if we can get the tariffs down to zero, that means not only will goods and services cost less here when we go to Walmart or we go to Best Buy or wherever it might be, and that's a good thing for American consumers, but it also means think about the jobs this would create.
But not every country is willing to talk free and fair trade.
China's market distortions and the way they deal cannot be tolerated.
Moore's recommendation comes during an ongoing back and forth between the U.S. and China on trade. Trump first slapped tariffs of $250 billion of Chinese imports. Beijing responded with penalties on $60 billion of U.S. products.
You want to talk about countries that don't play by the rules. China cheats, they steal, they're building up their military, they make it almost impossible for American businesses to do business over there in China.
So China will be no doubt the biggest challenge.
No doubt, there's no doubt about that.
The Council of Economic Advisors reports the average American tariff is 3.5%. Average EU rate is 5%, while China's rate is double at 10%. Moore says by offering zero tariffs, it allows America to take the high ground and even gain a stronger negotiating position with China to end some of Beijing's most abusive trade policies.
Now, Steve, all this sounds great. Zero for zero, more jobs, the economy would improve. Why isn't it so easy for countries just to get on board?
Because these other countries don't want to do it. I mean, so these countries like to lecture us and stuff, but when it comes right down to it, a lot of these countries have protectionist impulses, and they don't want to open up their markets to us.
Now, Moore tells me the zero-for-zero deal would expand global commerce, reduce poverty, and even add trillions of dollars to the global economic output. Jenna, John?
Ben, first question is obviously, where do you begin? Does Moore have an idea of which countries would be interested in those zero-for-zero tariffs?
Yeah, Moore says Great Britain would actually be the best country to offer the zero-for-zero deal, but they first need to exit from the European Union. In July, Trump and EU President Jean-Claude Juncker agreed the U.S. and EU would work towards zero tariffs, zero non-tariff barriers, and zero subsidies on non-auto industrial goods. Now, the challenge will be extending that to all goods.
Yeah, Ben, do we know what President Trump thinks of this idea?
Well, the president is definitely for this idea. It's just getting the other countries to jump on board. As for other American companies, they seem to be excited about this prospect as it puts them on a level playing field, allowing them to compete with pretty much anyone. But I just spoke with my brother-in-law, who is a corn and soybean farmer in Indiana. He says it might be good for their grain short term, but fears that with cheap labor in other countries, it could eliminate domestic manufacturing for the middle class. And if that happens, it would take a toll on the agricultural economy with a lack of domestic demand. Basically, it's a domino effect, so lots of work to be pursued before a deal can be made. John and Jenna?
All right. Ben Kennedy at the White House. Thanks, Ben.
Thanks, Ben. Well, after the break, why Billy Graham's grandson is speaking out ahead of the midterm elections.
Well, just 12 days left until the midterm elections. President Trump and Vice President Pence have been hitting the road to help campaign for Republicans across the country. Pence appeared at Regent University on behalf of incumbent Virginia Congressman Scott Taylor Wednesday night. Capitol Hill correspondent Abigail Robertson was there.
Republican incumbent Scott Taylor hopes a ringing endorsement from the vice president will give him the last-minute boost he needs to beat Democratic opponent Elaine Luria and keep his seat in the House.
Virginia and America need Scott Taylor back.
Pence opened his speech at Regent University condemning the suspicious packages sent to multiple Democratic leaders like former President Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton.
As the president said, acts or threats of political violence of any kind have no place in the United States of America.
He also reminded the crowd about the importance of prayer at this time.
If you bow the head and bend the knee in the next 13 days, just pray for America. Pray for all people.
Taylor said he was honored the vice president reached out to campaign for him and told CBN News even though his race is tight, he feels confident he'll be heading back to Washington.
I think tonight was a huge statement of force that shows that we have tremendous support and momentum going into the election day, so I feel great about it.
Taylor's seat is one of many Republicans can't afford to lose if they want to keep their House majority. Reporting from Regent University, Abigail Robertson, CBN News.
Thanks, Abby. Well, the grandson of Billy Graham is speaking out a bit about the midterm elections. As Will Graham tells our CBN's David Brody, it's crucial for Christians to get out and vote.
You might have heard of there's something called a midterm election coming up, and I know your grandfather really was able to kind of bridge that gap between both parties. I mean, it's pretty unique, very unique, especially today. What's kind of a message for Christians as they look to maybe sit on the couch, maybe go to the voting booth? They're not quite sure. Maybe they're just tired of the whole process. So what do you say to folks that are just thinking about not engaging, really?
Well, oftentimes we focus on the politics of Washington, D.C. And this is where Congress is, this is where the Supreme Court is, this is where our president is, all in Washington, D.C. But yet there's so many other elections going on at the same time, especially with school boards, local levels, whether it's sheriff. We got a lot of other races that are going on. They're just as important as the national ones or the local ones. And I would encourage Christians to get out and ask God, say, God, show me which ones I need to vote for. Let's put good people in office, good people of character, put them into office and help them to make decisions and help support them too. It's very hard to be taking any role in government now because it's so divisive. Yeah. But we need good people to stand up. If not, we're going to be stuck with the garbage running this country, and that's the last thing we want. And that doesn't mean Democrat or Republican. It just means that we'll just have bad people that, running for office. But when we really need good men and women of both sides, good character, to stand up and to take on national issues. And so I'd encourage Christians to come out and vote. Pray, ask God who you need to vote for. I don't know everybody's local election, and it's not Republican or Democrat. It's just who are the right people for that area. And so we just need to pray that Christians will get out and vote and vote for what God's laid on their heart.
Man, he's making the rounds. He has the new movie Unbroken, a new devotional, and now this with midterms.
That's right. The Graham legacy carries on.
Yeah, busy guy.
That's right. Well, that's going to do it for tonight's Faith Nation.
Have a great evening.